A day in my life, Istanbul adventures. Morning coffee disaster. Hey everyone, so it's 7:30 in the morning and I'm already running late. I woke up about 20 minutes ago and honestly I should have woken up an hour earlier, but I was so tired last night. I had been editing videos until 2 a.m., which was probably not the smartest decision I've ever made. Right now, I'm standing in my kitchen and I'm trying to make coffee, but guess what? I've run out of coffee. Can you believe it? I bought 2 packages just last week, but I've been drinking so much coffee lately because I've been working on this big project. So now I have to go out to get some, which means I'm going to be even more late. While I'm getting ready, let me tell you what happened yesterday. I was walking to the grocery store and I saw this little cafe that I'd never noticed before. It's funny because I've lived in this neighborhood for 3 years and I've walked past that street hundreds of times, but I'd never seen it. Maybe it's new? Or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Anyway, I decided to go in, and the owner was this lovely old man who told me he'd been running the cafe for 30 years. 30 years! And I'd never known about it. He made me the best Turkish coffee I've ever had in my life. He said the secret was in the way he roasted the beans. He'd been using the same technique that his father had taught him when he was just a teenager. While I was sitting there, sipping my coffee, I thought about how many hidden gems there must be in this city that I still haven't discovered. But now, because I don't have any coffee at home, I'm going to visit that cafe again this morning. Every cloud has a silver lining, right? I'm just grabbing my jacket now. It's getting colder these days. Last month I could wear just a t-shirt in the mornings, but now I need at least 2 layers. Winter is definitely coming. The journey to Eminönü. Okay, I'm outside now and the air is fresh and crisp. I love this time of day in Istanbul. The city is waking up, people are opening their shops, and you can smell fresh bread from the bakeries. I'm walking toward the tram station because I've decided to go to Eminönü today. I need to buy some spices from the Egyptian bazaar, and I also want to film some shots by the Bosphorus. Oh, I should tell you about something embarrassing that happened last week. I was taking the tram to Sultanahmet and I was so focused on my phone. I was replying to emails and messages that I completely missed my stop. I didn't realize until the tram had gone 3 stops further. By the time I got off and took the tram back, I'd wasted almost 40 minutes. My friend was waiting for me at a restaurant and she wasn't very happy. She'd been sitting there alone for half an hour and she'd already ordered because she thought I wasn't coming. I felt terrible. I'd promised her that I would be on time because we hadn't seen each other for months. She lives in Ankara now and she'd come to Istanbul just for the weekend. When I finally arrived, I apologized about 100 times and she forgave me, but she said that from now on I should put my phone away when I'm traveling. She was right, of course. We are all so addicted to our devices these days. The tram is here now. It's quite crowded. It usually is at this time of day. I found a spot near the door. There's an old lady sitting next to me and she's knitting something. It looks like a scarf. My grandmother used to knit all the time. She would make sweaters for all of us. Me, my brother, my cousins. She passed away 5 years ago and I still miss her. If she were here now, she would love Istanbul. She always wanted to visit, but she never got the chance. Life is strange sometimes, isn't it? The Egyptian Bazaar. I've just arrived at Eminönü and it's absolutely packed with people. There are tourists everywhere, taking photos, looking at maps, trying to figure out where to go. I remember when I first came to Istanbul as a tourist, I was completely overwhelmed. The city is so big, so chaotic, so full of life. I didn't speak any Turkish back then and I kept getting lost. One time, I was trying to find the Grand Bazaar and I asked someone for directions. They explained everything very carefully using hand gestures and simple words, but I misunderstood completely. I thought they said go straight, but they actually said go left. So I ended up in a completely different neighborhood. I walked around for an hour before I realized my mistake. Eventually, a kind shopkeeper saw that I looked confused and he helped me find my way back. He even drew me a little map on a piece of paper. I still have that map somewhere in my apartment. Now I'm entering the Egyptian Bazaar, which is also called the Spice Bazaar. The smells here are incredible. There's cinnamon, cumin, sumac, dried mint, and so many other spices that I can't even identify. The colors are beautiful too, deep reds, bright yellows, rich greens. I've been coming to this bazaar for years, but it never gets old. I'm looking for a specific spice shop. It's run by a man named Mehmet and he's become a friend over the years. Ah, there it is. Mehmet is standing at the entrance, and he's already seen me. He's waving and smiling. Merhaba, he says. That means hello in Turkish. I've learned quite a bit of Turkish since I moved here, but I'm still not fluent. I can have basic conversations, but if someone speaks too quickly, I get lost. Merhaba Mehmet, how are you? I reply. I'm very well, thank you. I haven't seen you for a few weeks. Where have you been? I've been so busy with work, I tell him. I've been making new videos for my channel, and I've had deadlines and meetings. It's been crazy. We chat for a while about life, about his family, about the weather. He tells me his daughter just started university and he's very proud. She's studying engineering, which is what she's always wanted to do. While we're talking, he's preparing a mixture of spices for me. It's a special blend that he makes himself. He won't tell me exactly what's in it because it's a family secret, but I think there's paprika, cumin, and several other things. You know, he says, my father taught me how to make this blend when I was 16 years old. He'd learned it from his father and his father had learned it from his father. The recipe's been passed down for 4 generations. Maybe one day, if my daughter is interested, I'll teach her too. But she's more interested in computers and engineering than spices. He laughs. I pay for the spices and he gives me some Turkish delight as a gift. He always does this. He's such a generous person. We say goodbye and I promise that I won't wait so long before visiting again. A walk by the Bosphorus. I've left the bazaar now and I'm walking toward the waterfront. I can see the Bosphorus, that beautiful strait that separates Europe and Asia. There are ferries crossing back and forth, seagulls flying overhead, and fishermen sitting on the bridge with their rods. This is one of my favorite spots in the whole city. I'm gonna sit on this bench for a while and just watch the water. Sometimes you need to slow down and appreciate the moment, you know? We're all so busy rushing from one place to another that we forget to just be. While I'm sitting here, I want to tell you about a realization I had recently. Last month I was feeling really stressed. I'd been working too much, I wasn't sleeping well, and I wasn't taking care of myself. One evening, I was walking home from a meeting and I was so exhausted that I almost started crying right there in the street. I thought to myself, what am I doing? Why am I pushing myself so hard? Then I saw an old man sitting in a tea garden. He was alone, drinking tea, watching the sunset. He looked so peaceful, so content. He wasn't on his phone, he wasn't rushing anywhere. He was just present. And I realized that I'd been living my life all wrong. I'd been so focused on the future, on goals, on success, on achievement, that I'd forgotten about the present. So I made a decision. I decided that I would try to be more like that old man. I would take time each day to just sit and observe and appreciate. That's why I'm sitting here now, watching the Bosphorus, even though I have a million things to do today. And you know what? I feel so much better. My mind is clearer. My heart is lighter. Oh, something interesting just happened. A seagull just stole someone's simit. Did you see that? A man was holding a simit, you know those circular bread things with sesame seeds, and a seagull just swooped down and grabbed it right out of his hand. The man is shouting and waving his arms, but the seagull is already flying away with his prize. Everyone around is laughing, even the man is laughing now, though he looks a bit annoyed. That's Istanbul for you. Always something unexpected happening. If I'd been looking at my phone, I would have missed that moment. It's these little things that make life interesting, don't you think? Lunch in Karaköy. I'm getting hungry now. It's already past noon and I haven't eaten anything except that Turkish delight that Mehmet gave me. I'm going to head to Karaköy. It's just a short walk from here. There's a restaurant there that makes amazing kumpir. Have you ever had kumpir? It's a Turkish-style baked potato with all sorts of toppings. It's delicious and filling, perfect for lunch. As I'm walking, I'm passing through some narrow streets with old buildings. Istanbul is such a mix of old and new. You'll see a 500-year-old mosque right next to a modern glass office building. You'll see traditional wooden houses next to concrete apartments. The city is constantly changing, constantly evolving, but it never loses its character. I remember when I first decided to move to Istanbul, my friends thought I was crazy. They said, why Istanbul? Why not London or Paris or New York? And honestly, I wasn't sure myself. I'd visited Istanbul once several years before, and something about the city had stayed with me. It had gotten under my skin, you know? So when I had the opportunity to move here for work, I took it, even though I was terrified. The first few months were really difficult. I didn't know anyone, I couldn't speak the language, and everything was so different from what I was used to. There were times when I seriously considered going back home. I would lie in bed at night, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. But then things started to change. I began to make friends, both locals and other foreigners. I started learning Turkish. I discovered little cafes and restaurants and bookshops that I loved. I found my favorite walking routes and my favorite views. The city stopped being scary and overwhelming and started feeling like home. Now, 3 years later, I can't imagine living anywhere else. Istanbul has become part of me. When I go back to visit my family, I miss it. I miss the call to prayer echoing across the city. I miss the tea gardens. I miss the chaos and the energy. Isn't it funny how that works? Whoa, masandarandarandar shia, bari shisarandarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandarandaran, kılçis shisarandarandarandarandaran, darandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandarandaran, vindarandarandaran. I've arrived at the restaurant now. It's pretty busy, but I've found a table outside. The weather is perfect for eating outdoors. Not too hot, not too cold. I'm going to order a kumpir with cheese, corn, olives, and red cabbage. And probably some pickles too. And definitely butter and mayonnaise. You can't have kumpir without those. While I'm waiting for my food, I'm watching people walk by. There's a couple holding hands, looking at a map, probably tourists. There's a businessman talking loudly on his phone, looking stressed. There's a group of students laughing and joking with each other. There's a mother pushing a stroller with a sleeping baby. So many different lives, all happening at the same time, all intersecting in this one moment and place. My food has arrived, and oh my goodness, it looks amazing. The potato is huge and it's loaded with toppings. I'm definitely going to need a nap after this. Let me just take a quick photo for Instagram. Okay, done. Now I'm going to eat. This is so good. The potato is perfectly baked. Crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside. The cheese is melted and gooey. The corn adds a nice sweetness. I'm in heaven right now. You know what's interesting? Food tastes better when you're really hungry and when you're eating it in a place you love. I've had kumpir in other cities, but it never tastes as good as it does here in Istanbul. Maybe it's the atmosphere, maybe it's the memories associated with the place, or maybe the potatoes really are better here. Who knows? An unexpected encounter. I've finished eating and I'm walking through the streets of Karaköy now, just exploring. This neighborhood has changed so much in the past few years. When I first moved to Istanbul, Karaköy was quite run down. But now it's become trendy, with lots of art galleries, designer shops, and fancy cafes. Some people say it's lost its character, but I think it's still interesting. Oh, I just saw someone I know. It's Sarah. She's a British woman I met at a language exchange event about 2 years ago. We've met up a few times since then, but I haven't seen her in months. Sarah, hi. I call out. She turns around and her face lights up. Oh my god, I can't believe it's you. I was just thinking about you the other day. We hug and start catching up. She tells me she's been traveling. She went to Georgia, then Armenia, then back to the UK to visit her family. She only returned to Istanbul a few days ago. I've missed this city so much. She says, while I was away, I kept thinking about the Bosphorus and the tulips in Emirgan Park and having tea on the rooftops. No other place feels quite like Istanbul, does it? We decide to have coffee together, so we find a nearby cafe and sit down. The waiter brings us 2 Turkish coffees and some water. Sarah and I talk about everything. Our work, our lives, our plans for the future. She's thinking about starting her own business, maybe something related to tourism or cultural exchange. She's been in Istanbul for 5 years and she knows the city inside out. Do you remember that time we got completely lost trying to find that secret garden in Balat? She asks, laughing. Oh god, yes, we walked around for hours. My feet were killing me. And then when we finally found it, it was closed for renovations, okay? We both laugh at the memory. That was such a frustrating day at the time, but now it's just a funny story. She tells me that she's been reading a lot lately, novels, history books, poetry. She says reading has helped her understand Turkey and Turkish culture better. She's learned about the Ottoman Empire, about Atatürk and the founding of the Republic, about Sufism and Rumi. The more I learn, and the rest is yeah. She says the more I realize how much I don't know. This country has such a rich, complex history. I could spend my whole life studying it and still only scratch the surface. I know exactly what she means. Every time I think I understand Istanbul, I discover something new that surprises me. We finish our coffee and Sarah needs to go. She has a meeting with a potential business partner. We promise to meet up again soon, maybe next week. We hug goodbye and I watch her walk away down the street. These chance encounters are one of the things I love about living in a city. You never know who you might run into. Your day can completely change direction because of one random meeting. The afternoon slump. It's about 3 p.m. now, and I'm feeling that afternoon tiredness. You know what I mean? That post-lunch drowsiness when all you want to do is lie down and close your eyes for a few minutes. But I can't do that because I'm in the middle of the city, and I still have things to do. I'm gonna find a quiet tea garden and rest for a bit. There's one near here that I like. It's tucked away in a small side street, so not many tourists know about it. Let me just walk this way. Ah, here it is. It's a small garden with trees and flowers, and there are cushioned benches where you can sit. There are only a few other people here, an elderly couple playing backgammon and a young woman reading a book. It's peaceful and quiet, a world away from the busy streets just a few meters away. I'm ordering a glass of apple tea. The waiter is an older gentleman who looks like he's worked here for decades. He nods at my order without saying anything and disappears inside. While I'm waiting, I'm thinking about my life and how much it's changed. 3 years ago, I was living in a small town, working a job I didn't really enjoy, feeling stuck. I dreamed about adventure, about living somewhere exotic, about doing something meaningful with my life. But dreams are easy, actually making them happen is hard. I almost didn't move to Istanbul. I got the job offer, and at first I was excited. But then fear crept in. What if I failed? What if I couldn't adapt? What if I made a terrible mistake? I spent weeks agonizing over the decision, making lists of pros and cons, asking everyone I knew for advice. In the end, it was my grandmother who convinced me. She was already quite ill by then, but her mind was still sharp. I visited her and told her about the job offer and my fears. She looked at me with those wise eyes and said, "Darling, when I was your age, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world, but I didn't because I was afraid. I kept thinking I'd do it later, when I had more money, when I had more time, when conditions were perfect. But later never came. I got married, I had children, I had responsibilities. And now I'm old and I never did see the world. Don't make my mistake. Don't let fear stop you from living." She died 6 months after I moved to Istanbul. I'm so glad I took her advice. I think about her often, especially when I'm scared or uncertain. I think about what she would say, and it gives me courage. The waiter has brought my tea. It's served in a traditional tulip-shaped glass, and it's the perfect temperature, hot but not burning. I take a sip and feel myself relaxing. A cat has just appeared and is rubbing against my leg. Istanbul is famous for its street cats. They're everywhere and most of them are very friendly because people feed them and take care of them. This one is orange with white paws. It's purring loudly. "Hello there," I say, reaching down to pet it. The cat closes its eyes in contentment. You know, cats have the right idea about life. They eat when they're hungry, they sleep when they're tired, they enjoy simple pleasures. They don't worry about the future or regret the past. They just live in the moment. Maybe we should all be more like cats. Evening in Cihangir. It's early evening now, around 6 p.m. and I've decided to head to Cihangir. It's one of my favorite neighborhoods in Istanbul, bohemian, artistic, full of character. The streets are steep and narrow, lined with colorful old buildings. There are lots of cafes, bookshops, and small art galleries. I'm meeting a friend here for dinner. His name is Ken, and he's Turkish. I met him through work. He's a photographer, and we've collaborated on several projects together. He's become one of my closest friends here. While I'm walking to the restaurant where we're meeting, I'm thinking about friendship and how it changes as you get older. When you're young, making friends is easy. You're in school, you're around the same people every day, friendships just happen naturally. But as an adult, especially when you move to a new city or country, it's much harder. You have to put in effort, you have to be brave enough to reach out to people, you have to be vulnerable. When I first moved here, I was lonely. I tried joining groups and going to events, but it felt forced and awkward. I met people, but they didn't become real friends. They were just acquaintances I'd chat with occasionally. Ken was different. We met at a cafe, I was working on my laptop and he asked if he could share my table because everywhere else was full. We started talking and we just clicked. We had similar interests, similar values, similar senses of humor. Within a few weeks, we were meeting up regularly. He's helped me so much with understanding Turkish culture and navigating life in Istanbul. He's taught me Turkish phrases, he's taken me to places I never would have found on my own, he's explained cultural nuances that I wouldn't have understood otherwise. He's been patient with my mistakes and my misunderstandings. I've arrived at the restaurant. Ken is already here. I can see him through the window, sitting at a table near the back. He's looking at his phone, probably checking Instagram or messages. I walk in, and he looks up and waves. "You're late," he says, grinning. I know, I'm sorry, I lost track of time." "That's okay, I ordered some appetizers for us. I hope you're hungry." We start eating and talking. He tells me about a new photography project he's working on. He's documenting old wooden houses in Istanbul before they disappear. Many of them are being torn down and replaced with modern buildings, and he wants to preserve their memory through his photographs. "It makes me sad," he says. "These houses have so much history, so much character, but people don't care about that anymore. They just want new shiny buildings with elevators and parking." I understand why. The old houses have problems. They're not always comfortable or practical. But still, we're losing something important. I ask him if he's always been interested in preserving the past. "Not always," he admits. "When I was younger, I wanted everything to be modern and new. I thought old things were boring. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that the past matters. It's part of our identity, part of who we are. If we lose it completely, we lose a part of ourselves." We talk about change and loss, about progress and preservation, about the tension between honoring the past and embracing the future. These are big questions, and we don't have all the answers, but it's interesting to discuss them. The main course arrives. I've ordered Iskender kebab and Ken has ordered mantı, which are Turkish dumplings with yogurt and butter. We shared both dishes, trying a bit of each. So Ken says, "Have you thought any more about whether you're going to stay in Istanbul long term?" This is a question I've been asking myself a lot lately. My work visa is valid for another year, and then I'll need to decide whether to renew it or leave. Part of me wants to stay here forever. I love this city, I love my life here, but another part of me wonders if I should try living somewhere else, having new experiences, seeing more of the world. I honestly don't know, I tell him. Some days I think I'll stay here forever, other days I think I should move on. How do you make a decision like that? He thinks for a moment. "I don't think you can know for sure until the time comes. You just have to trust your instincts, trust your gut feeling. And remember that whatever you decide, it doesn't have to be permanent. If you leave and later regret it, you can always come back. If you stay and later feel restless, you can always leave. Nothing is forever." That's good advice. I've been putting so much pressure on myself to make the right decision, but maybe there isn't one right decision. Maybe all the options are okay, and I just need to choose one and see what happens. We finish dinner and order tea. The restaurant is getting busier now. It's Friday evening and people are out celebrating the end of the work week. There's a group of friends at the next table laughing loudly, clearly having a great time. There's a couple by the window having what looks like a serious conversation. There's a family with 2 small children who are running around and being adorable. Ken and I talk for another hour about everything and nothing: movies, books, politics, relationships, dreams. This is what I value most about our friendship. We can talk about deep things, but we can also be silly and superficial. There's no pressure to always be profound or interesting. We can just be ourselves. Eventually, we pay the bill and leave. Outside, the evening air is cool and pleasant. The streetlights have come on, giving everything a warm glow. We walk together for a while, just enjoying the night. "I'm glad you moved to Istanbul," Ken says suddenly. "My life is better with you in it." I feel a wave of emotion. It's not often that someone says something so direct and genuine. "I'm glad too," I say. "I can't imagine my Istanbul experience without you." We hug goodbye, and he heads toward his apartment while I walk toward the main street to catch a dolmuş, a shared minibus home. Night reflections. I'm on the dolmuş now, squished between other passengers. It's crowded and a bit uncomfortable, but I don't mind. I'm tired in a good way, the kind of tired you feel after a full, meaningful day. I'm thinking about everything that happened today. The morning coffee adventure, the visit to the Egyptian bazaar, lunch in Karaköy, the unexpected meeting with Sarah, the quiet tea garden, dinner with Ken. Each moment was small and ordinary, but together they created something special. This is what life is, isn't it? Not big dramatic events, but small everyday moments. Conversations with friends, good food, beautiful views, chance encounters, quiet reflections. We often think we need something extraordinary to happen to be happy, but actually happiness is built from ordinary things. The dolmuş is passing by the Bosphorus now. I can see the lights reflecting on the water and the outline of the hills on the Asian side. No matter how many times I see this view, it still takes my breath away. Istanbul at night is magical. I'm thinking about my grandmother again and what she told me about not letting fear stop me from living. She was right, but I'm also learning that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and doing things anyway. Every day I'm afraid of something, making mistakes, failing, being rejected, being alone. But I'm doing my best to not let that fear control me. Moving to Istanbul was scary. Making new friends was scary. Learning a new language was scary. Trying new things was scary. But I did them all anyway, and my life is so much richer because of it. The dolmuş is approaching my stop. I press the button to signal the driver, and the vehicle slows down. I squeeze past the other passengers and step out onto the street. I'm just a 5-minute walk from my apartment now. The streets in my neighborhood are quiet at this hour. Most of the shops are closed and there aren't many people around. There's a bakery that stays open late and I can smell fresh bread. There's a man walking his dog. There's a couple sitting on a bench talking quietly. I'm thinking about tomorrow. I don't have any specific plans. Maybe I'll sleep in, maybe I'll work on some videos, maybe I'll go somewhere new. That's one of the things I love about weekends, the freedom to be spontaneous, to follow my mood, to let the day unfold naturally. But that's tomorrow. Right now, I'm just enjoying this moment, the walk home, the cool air, the quiet streets, the sense of contentment in my chest. I've reached my building. I'm climbing the stairs to my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor and there's no elevator, so I get exercise every day whether I want it or not. I'm a bit out of breath by the time I reach my door. Inside, I drop my bag on the floor and immediately change into comfortable clothes. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea and maybe watch something relaxing before bed. Or maybe I'll read for a while. Or maybe I'll just sit by the window and look at the city lights. Final thoughts. So that was my day. Nothing extraordinary happened. I didn't have any adventures or dramatic experiences. I just lived my life, did ordinary things, spent time with people I cared about, appreciated the place where I live. But you know what? That's enough. That's more than enough. I used to think I needed to do something impressive or achieve something great to be happy and fulfilled. But I'm learning that contentment comes from appreciating what you have, from being present in your own life, from finding joy in small things. Istanbul has taught me a lot. It's taught me to be patient, to be flexible, to embrace uncertainty. It's taught me that being uncomfortable sometimes is okay. It means you're growing and learning. It's taught me that home isn't necessarily where you were born or where your family is. Home is where you feel like yourself, where you can breathe easily, where you want to be. Is Istanbul perfect? Of course not. The traffic is terrible, the bureaucracy is frustrating, and sometimes the cultural differences are challenging. But nowhere is perfect. Every place has problems and difficulties. The question is whether the good things outweigh the bad things, and for me in Istanbul, they do. I don't know how long I'll stay here. Maybe another year, maybe 5 years, maybe forever. I'm trying not to worry too much about the future. I'm trying to focus on now, on today, on this moment. Right now, I'm sitting by my window with a cup of tea, looking out at the city. I can see lights in the distance and I can hear the sounds of Istanbul. Cars, voices, music, cats. Tomorrow I'll wake up and start another day. And who knows what it will bring. Maybe something exciting, maybe nothing special. Either way, I'll be okay. Life is strange and unpredictable and sometimes scary, but it's also beautiful and full of possibilities. 3 years ago, I never could have imagined that I'd be here living this life, having these experiences. If I'd let my fear win, I'd be back in my hometown, probably still at that job I didn't like, still dreaming about adventure, but never actually having it. Instead, I took a risk. I moved to a city where I didn't know anyone, where I couldn't speak the language, where everything was unfamiliar. And it was hard, really hard. But it was also the best decision I've ever made. So if there's one thing I want to say to anyone who's thinking about making a big change in their life, whether it's moving to a new place, starting a new career, ending a relationship, beginning a relationship, whatever it is, my advice is this: do it. Take the risk. Yes, you might fail. Yes, it might be difficult. Yes, you might regret it, but you also might not. You might look back one day and realize it was the best thing you ever did. Life is short. We only get one chance at this. Don't spend your whole life being afraid, playing it safe, wondering what if. Take chances, make mistakes, have adventures. Live fully and completely, with all the mess and uncertainty and beauty that comes with being human. Okay, I'm getting philosophical now, which probably means I'm tired and should go to bed. I have filming to do tomorrow, and I need to be well rested. Thank you for spending this day with me, for listening to my stories and my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching this video, it means I managed to film everything and edit it together, which honestly seemed impossible when I started this morning. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and don't forget to appreciate the small, beautiful moments in your everyday life. Good night from Istanbul. Epilogue. It's the next morning now, and I just wanted to add one more thing. I woke up early because the sun was shining through my window, and I couldn't sleep anymore. I made myself coffee. Yes, I went to that cafe yesterday and bought some beans to take home, and I'm sitting in the same spot where I was last night. Something happened just now that I want to tell you about. I was sitting here drinking my coffee when I heard voices from the apartment next door. My neighbors are an elderly couple and they were having breakfast on their balcony. I could hear them talking and laughing, and the sound made me smile. Then I heard the husband say to his wife, "You know, we've been having breakfast together on this balcony for 40 years and I still love it just as much as the first time." And she replied, "That's because you still love me just as much as the first time." They both laughed, and I felt my eyes getting a bit teary. There was something so beautiful about that moment. These two people who have spent their whole lives together, still finding joy in something as simple as having breakfast together. It made me think about what really matters in life. It's not about having exciting adventures every day or achieving great things or impressing other people. It's about finding someone or something you love and appreciating it, day after day, year after year. It's about building a life that feels meaningful to you, even if it looks ordinary to everyone else. I don't know if I'll find that kind of lasting love. I don't know if I'll still be in Istanbul 40 years from now. I don't know much about the future at all. But I do know that right now, in this moment, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The sun is getting higher in the sky, and the city is waking up. I can hear the call to prayer from a nearby mosque and the sound of shopkeepers opening their shutters. Another day in Istanbul is beginning, full of unknown possibilities. And I can't wait to see what happens next.